Hello, good morning. It is the day before Christmas Eve here in San Francisco, so it's pretty quiet around here. So today we're going to be talking about consolidation, which is not only an extremely important step in ensuring success when learning a language slowly, when you're busy, like we're talking about in this series, but it's also a very important step just generally when learning a new skill and learning languages in particular. So this is something I do with all my languages, all the skills that I learn, including web development and software engineering, including anything else I know. Alright, so here we are on Valencia Street, which actually is one of my favorite streets in San Francisco, and it's very close to where I live. So I thought I would take you guys on my walk to get lunch today, where I will be doing some Chinese study. So what is consolidation? So of course, whenever you're learning a new skill, and especially a new language, there's always going to be a sort of larger inpour of information that you're learning compared to the things that you actually remember, the things that you assimilate as knowledge that is in your grasp and things you can use when speaking or reading or listening or any of the other language skills. And so what I like to do is there's an initial phase where I pour in information, and this is especially true when we're learning a language very slowly, just 15 to 30 minutes per day. Because of course, in that amount of time, it's very difficult to gain the sort of momentum that you would need to really retain a lot of that information. So in my case, as you guys know, I was doing Chinesepod, and I went through the first 15 lessons of all the way to intermediate, which is just a playlist they have, really conveniently organized lessons that I can go through with minimum effort, minimum choices. I just go one by one. So I did the first 15 lessons. I finished that now. It took me quite a while because I was doing it just a little bit every day. And so of course now there's quite a lot of information that I have learned. I learned a lot of different phrases and sentence structures, a lot of nouns and adjectives and verbs and so on and so forth. But it's hard for me to remember them. I remember the grammatical structures quite well. They're quite easy for me to learn. Chinese characters have been a huge help for me, coming from Japanese, where I know how to read a lot of Chinese characters. I've had a lot of difficulty remembering nouns and sort of individual vocab words, also verbs and adjectives. That's been tricky. So what I did to consolidate that information is I created a flashcard deck on Anki. Now Anki is super old school. I've talked about Memrise a lot in the past. I did start using Memrise for a number of years. But Anki just has this sort of nostalgia for me. I used to use Anki when I learned Japanese. It's good. It's very basic and manual. So I made a flashcard deck containing all the words and phrases from those first 15 lessons. Now, the great thing about Chinesepod is they have audio files you can download for every single sentence. And so what I did is I have this great, very simple flashcard deck that has all the words, all the phrases with Chinese characters, with pinyin, with the English translation, and with the audio file for pronunciation. And that's it. And so what I'm going to do now is enter a phase of consolidation where I try to consolidate all that new information that I have taken in but haven't yet been able to assimilate. And so while I do that, I might learn 1 or 2 new lessons of Chinesepod, maybe lesson 16, 17, 18, but very slowly. Most of my effort for the next 1 to 2 weeks is going to be all based on consolidating that information. Now, for me, when I learn a new language, I also like to focus on writing and reading. So I'll be doing a lot of writing. I'll be handwriting a lot of the Chinese characters. I'll be doing lots of that. I also find that it sort of deepens the cognitive process for me, and I learn things better when I write them by hand. So that's it. So basically, it's a huge key for success. Taking the time and care to retain and consolidate information that you learn. A lot of people, they just keep going through the course. They'll do 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, all the way lesson 45, lesson 50. And then it starts to become a real mess because you have all this information you've learned, all these words, all these phrases, but it can be very frustrating because you can't use any of them when you go to speak. And then that can also be a hit to your confidence. It can make you discouraged. And then the task of consolidating all your knowledge becomes huge. It becomes overwhelming. If I went through all 30 lessons of Chinesepod, and then I went through all the Chinese lessons on Duolingo, whatever it is, without really taking the time to consolidate, it would be an overwhelming task for me to then try to go back and review. So that's why I believe in doing it in small chunks. So like I said, lesson 1 to 15 of Chinesepod, learned a lot, really great. I'm starting to be able to make sentences. Now I'm gonna go back for 2 weeks or so, it doesn't matter how long, and I will consolidate. Flashcard deck, go through. I would like to get to where I know pretty much all that content fairly confidently. Then I'll do lesson 16 to 30. And then after that, I will do the same thing. I'll consolidate, I'll go back through, and then that will be a really strong foundation for my Chinese knowledge that I can then build off. So I just think it's a really good topic. It's a very simple technique. It's a very simple step. But if you don't do this, I think that's one of the reasons why many sort of average language learners have a lot of difficulty. So I also want to tell you that I'm going to be sort of transitioning this series into a new one, which is more focused on me learning Chinese. A little similar to Korean from scratch, because I think that might be a little bit more focused and more interesting to more people. So I'll be using my journey of learning Mandarin Chinese as a way to illustrate this process of learning a language while being very, very busy. Because I'm very busy, but I'm learning Mandarin at the moment very successfully. So I look forward to sharing that story. So as soon as I get my new camera, new microphone, make my apartment a little bit more nice to look at on video, then I will transition and start a brand new series. It's gonna be really exciting. So, but for now, we'll still keep talking a little bit more about how to learn a language while being very busy.